All right. Welcome back to the 2K booth. I am here with Jeremy and Anthony. I don't know which is which because they kept telling me different things to confuse me. I think that that's kind of a jerk thing to do. So how about you introduce yourself, and you can lie to everyone if you want, but then it will be on you.
Jeremy Cook, art director. I'm Anthony Birch. I am the writer.
And I'm also Anthony Birch. I also wrote Borderlands 2. No, I'm Jeremy Cook. I am the art director.
So I still have no idea which is which, but that's fine. So let's give a quick overview of what a lot of people, they don't really know how game development works. I mean, unless you're in it oftentimes, and oftentimes our titles and roles are very mixed together. So could you just give in your own words, what do you do on Borderlands 2? Like, what does a month of your work look like? Go. One month.
I mean, wow, a month. Well, basically what I do is I wrangle this huge pit of really talented artists. Like, I have 34 guys and girls, and they're all just like amazing, talented folks that do crazy stuff. And my job is to take all the crazy stuff and make it into something that makes sense. That's mostly it. And then I draw on it and put big red X's and check marks and things like that. That's mostly my job. All the people under me are the guys that do all the cool stuff. They make all the models and textures and stuff like that. So that's about what I do.
The sort of fun thing about my job has been that it changes every so often. So like early on in the project, it was like I worked with Paul Hellquist and Jeremy and Randy Pitchford and Mikey Newman to basically like, what's the high-level story of Borderlands 2. After we had that settled down, then I wrote the script, and then it became a matter of like, you know, working with the designers for like, oh, you have this idea for a side quest that's insane and references Top Gun incessantly. How can we make a script out of that? And you know, working with the team and stuff like that. And then basically it turned into, you know, a lot of recording for a while, and then it got to, it's like now you're co-directing voiceover stuff, and that's a whole different other job. And then coming back and sort of getting it into the game and making sure it's all working as intended and plugging things in, and it's yeah.
All right. Well, okay, so you clearly do a lot of different things. Of those different,
Jeremy does way more than I am. I'm just more verbose.
Of those different things you mentioned, which is your favorite part of working? This is for both of you, but we'll start with you. What is your favorite part of doing the writing for Borderlands 2? Like, what's?
I really love doing the being around for the voice recording. So when working with people like Colleen Klinkenbeer, Damian Clark, or you know, hearing just words that I've written, because I think they all suck until I hear somebody do it correctly. So at that moment, I'm like, okay, everything I wrote is bad, and I'm a fraud, and somebody's going to find that out. And then somebody like Colleen Klinkenbeer comes in and makes it all sound cool. I'm like, yeah, now I look like a genius. So it's just basically an ego validation for me.
I mean, the favorite thing I do really is world building. Like, I love when, you know, we make all these cool assets, we make, you know, hundreds and thousands of bits, and just I love when they all come together, they bring them together, and they become like a real place. And suddenly I'm like running around in that world. I'm looking behind the gas station and like, I wonder what's at the Happy Pig gas station, you know, and just really experiencing the world for the first time. It's sort of like this abstract thing that you build tiny little pieces of for, you know, 2.5 years, and then all of a sudden it becomes a real place that you can explore and live in and blow things heads off in.
All right. Well then, let's start talking about the game itself. Let's start with the basics. What is Borderlands 2 about?
Go for it. You can do that one.
Like story-wise, or just say, Borderlands 2 is a game that's about shooting midgets in the face with shotguns that fire lightning. Like, that's the basic.
I feel like I should play this game.
Yeah, that's as far as I'm concerned, that's the basic encapsulation of everything that is Borderlands.
I have actually played Borderlands, just so you know.
I know.
Okay.
I'm answering for the people. But no, I think that's what's kind of cool about Borderlands is that there's an incredible amount of depth to the characters and, you know, to the mechanics, because there's just so much emergence in the actual moment-to-moment play. But it's a game that also aesthetically, stylistically does not take itself seriously the vast majority of the time. It's very badass, but there's also this edge of like, you know, like the touchstone I always use is Scooter, because like Scooter's, you know, everybody loves Scooter. He's funny and he laughs and he makes jokes and says funny things. He's a murderer. Like, you meet him and he kills a guy who slept with his mom, and he's completely unapologetic about it. And he's your best friend, and he is a stone cold murderer. And there's no redeeming him. It's just the way that Pandora works. And so that's the tone of Borderlands. The actual gameplay is you know, shooting midgets in the face. And the story of Borderlands 2 is 5 years after the opening of the vault in the first Borderlands. The Vault Hunters sort of disappear, scattered to the four winds from the first game, Roland, Lilith, Mordecai, and Brick. And a new antagonist named Handsome Jack, who's the head of the Hyperion Corporation, who makes the claptraps and the new use stations and all that stuff. comes in and basically just takes over Pandora, tries to remake it in his own image, tries to make it a peaceful place free of bandits, which sounds like, yay, awesome, no bandits. But to him, a bandit is anybody who's not part of the Hyperion family, so that includes the player, the Vault Hunters from the previous game, anybody who's just not giving him a great deal of money. And so the player sort of goes on this quest to liberate Pandora and get rid of Handsome Jack with the help of the Vault Hunters from the previous games. I'm staring at you like you don't know this, but I feel like we're talking to a camera, so I apologize.
Oh, you can tell me. No. Actually, I don't know a ton about Borderlands 2, so
okay.
You're actually educating me. That sounds kind of cool. I should go back to the office and play it. How did you approach, especially from a writing perspective, how do you approach kind of making a sequel to Borderlands with this, like, Handsome Jack? What was the kind of the thought process that got to that point? Like, I mean, that's pretty different than the storyline of Borderlands 1, right? Which is much more about seeking out this great treasure. And this is very different. You got this villain that is the driving of the story. So what was the kind of thought process behind that?
It was basically, let's do something that still has the capacity to have a treasure hunt in it. So, like, when you start Borderlands 2, you're going to kill Handsome Jack, but you're also looking for an even greater vault than the one in the first game. Something that's got even more, has something more than just tentacles and disappointment in it. And it has, a bunch of treasure and really cool stuff in it. So something that allowed for that kind of it was a loose framework, because the creative director, Paul Helquist, and I are really big fans of games that have a very villain-centric story. So your Portals, your System Shocks, your Bioshocks. And so we wanted to make a game that was centered around an antagonist, because for a game that's got a bazillion guns, it's a really good to link the story with the gameplay as much as possible. And what do you like doing with guns? You like shooting people. So what's a good story to have? Make a guy that you really want to shoot, and at the end of the game you get to shoot him. Spoiler, sorry. So it came from that, basically, and having a really clear focal point to drive you through the game. You don't like Handsome Jack, kill him, get a bunch of treasure from the vaults, go. Something that could be summarized in one sentence.
All right, and then almost the same thing, specifically about Handsome Jack. How did you approach kind of designing this sort of character? Like, what do you want the villain in Borderlands 2 to look? Because the villains in Borderlands 2 range from like antlion type things to humans to midgets. So what made you decide on the handsome Jack?
Well, I think it's actually because he's handsome. Like, in some ways, Jack visually is the antithesis of everything in Borderlands. Like, Borderlands is rough and tumble, it's death, it's skulls and blood and metal and like all these bits thrown together. But Jack, he's totally together. He's clean, he's tidy, he wears cool sneakers and the latest designer jacket. I mean, he's kind of everything that isn't Borderlands, and so he really rails against it. He's going to pave it over. He's going to make it clean and tidy. And of course, that's not what the Borderlands is about. It's about being, death and dismemberment and kind of surviving on the edge. And I think Jack is just sort of against all of that. He's just too clean. He's just too handsome.
That was one of my my favorite sort of problems we sort of tackled, the meetings we had where we were like, what's Handsome Jack gonna look like? Because okay, he's a handsome dude, yay! That was the least interesting thing, and it was we were like, what if he has a big Doctor Who scarf, or what if all these different things? And I really like where we landed on him, where he's got that mask with the clamps on, and the clamp is also like a douchey little soul patch thing. Like it was a lot of fun sort of seeing you guys work through that problem, and I love the way he looks.
So, if we were to pick two words that describe Borderlands, I think big and badass might be two pretty appropriate words to describe just Borderlands as a franchise. So when you're approaching Borderlands 2, obviously it has to be bigger, and obviously it has to be more badass. So how did you approach making that happen? How do you take what's already Borderlands and make it Borderlandsier?
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge challenge, but I mean, the simple answer is that we made a lot more content this time around. There's more creatures, more weapons, more gear. So that was, bigger was easy in some sense. But then how do you make it more badass? That was really about, like, pumping up the color, pumping up the shapes, like exaggerating things even further. Because, in the first game, there was a lot of post-apocalyptic desert. There was a lot of kind of flatlands and plain stuff. And I think this time we really pushed all of the shapes. We pushed all the colors. Everything's just a lot more over the top and intense. And it's hard because, you still want to keep it cool. You still want to keep it in a way identifiable to people where they know what they're looking at. Because at some point, like, giant mushrooms starts to get really weird. So you have to make sure that, okay, how is this going to make sense to somebody? How can they connect to it? And I think that's really the challenge, because it's easy to make something 50 stories tall, but then how do you make someone understand what that is and what it's about? I don't know if you want to talk the story side of that, but...
No, I didn't even work on the first game, so how did I improve on the thing I didn't do? I don't know.
All right. Well, then, what you definitely can comment on, the 5-year gap in the story.
Right.
Why?
Oh, yeah.
Or just How about why? We'll start with why, and then I'll come up with a second thing.
Basically because we wanted to make a game that was, when we decided early on that you're not going to be playing as the same four Vault Hunters from the first game, but a lot of people have a lot of attachment to Mordecai, Lilith, Brick, and Roland. So, okay, well, what if they show up in the story? And so we thought, okay, that's cool. But when you meet them, you want it to be something interesting. You don't want it just to be like, hey, it's been 2 weeks since the vault opened, and Roland still has his skull cap. That's cool. What's going on? Nothing. I ate some Fritos. I just sat around. Like, he didn't do anything. We wanted to give this 5-year gap so that we could put all the returning characters from the earlier games into a new context and have it be a surprise every time you meet someone and sort of come into this world fresh again. You know Pandora, but you don't really know Pandora. You've only seen a small fraction of it in the first Borderlands, and you're seeing all this new stuff, and you're seeing how Handsome Jack has changed it. And when you meet the returning Vault Hunters, you might be surprised the sort of situations they find themselves in, and yeah, what I just said.
You guys always have such good answers for these things. It's like I'm expecting you to be like, oh, just kind of pulled 5 years out of a hat. I'm like, wow, you guys are smarter than me, I think.
No, I'm just better at BSing.
Oh, it could be that as well.
I don't actually know what I'm talking about. What game is this? NBA 2K13.
NBA 2K13's trailer is blasting at us right here. Did you want to talk about the 5-year gap at all? I mean, kind of from
we wanted visually an evolution. There's, like you said, not much can happen in 15 minutes, so that wasn't going to be a good gap. But also, we wanted to have Hyperion to have time to do something to Pandora. So, like, they needed time to build the opportunity, the city that we're showing here for the demo. So, like, we needed that time to show how the world had changed since you opened the vault. I mean, when you open the vault, all this iridium comes pouring out, starts changing the world, starts changing the creatures. So, I mean, that time is really necessary to lapse so that when you go back, everything's suddenly evolved and new.
All right. Let's talk about the characters. Obviously, a big part of Borderlands is the characters, the different abilities, that when you play multiplayer, you can either play with 4 of the same guy or the 4 different guys. So, designing, writing kind of the story behind these characters, how did you approach that, and how did you end up with these 4 very different characters from last time?
I mean, there's a lot of inputs to that. We start a lot of times with just a quick visual idea. We have a great concept artist, Scott Kester, who lays down like this, just quick doodles that kind of inspire us. They're like, oh, this would be kind of cool, this would be kind of cool. At the same time, our lead designer, Paul Helquist, and a bunch of the design team get together and they're like, well, this would be a neat, action ability. It would be really cool if somebody would throw out a decoy, turn invisible, and then go kill guys with a sword. Okay, so that's a neat gameplay idea. So we'll take that and marry it with the visuals that Scott's put together, on the art side. And then from there, we just tend to iterate. We build more final concept art, look at it, see how it's evolving. I think we should change the sword to a crossbow or something like that. Suddenly we push that back to design plays with it a bit. And it's a real iterative process from there where we then get it in the hands of players, test it, see how they're reacting to what it feels like to be that character. And from there, then we start kind of lining them up together and make a team. We're looking for a group that hangs together nice, that looks like they, would adventure together. And they kind of balance each other out, like we got a tall, skinny guy, we got a short, strong guy, we got men and women, it's so, we're trying to build an awesome A-team, as it were, they need to work well together. And so, I mean, that's from the visual design sort of where we get, the look from, as it were. Anthony could probably talk a little bit about the story, and, we did a little back and forth on that.
Yeah, like you were saying, is iterative. These are not the first drafts of the characters, their personalities. We talked a lot about, because we actually found out through focus testing, we initially were like, okay, we need to have like stories in our minds for them for like when people ask us in interviews and stuff, and we didn't think about it that hard. But then we focus tested it a lot, and we found more and more people being like, I really want to know who the character I'm playing is, what their backstory is. And so we thought about that a lot more, fleshed it out more. You'll be able to sort of find out more about your character as you play through the game. And their personalities was sort of a very iterative process too, because we started out. Oh my God! I pressed the button. Did I turn this off?
Nope. I don't think so. I think you're okay.
We're good.
They'll tell us if you turn it off.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, like the original Axton was like really frat boyish, and the dialogue I wrote for him sucked. Like he was frat boyish because I wrote bad dialogue for him. And we went back, fixed it, and now he's awesome, and so it's cool. So yeah.
Alrighty, and you had mentioned working together. I was actually curious, how much writer and lead art director, not lead.
You're the lead of all the art directors.
You guys confused me in the beginning, remember? That was your
that's
fault.
our bad.
All right. So,
Jeremy, how you doing?
How do you guys directly work together? How much of it is who who, I'm sure the answer is going to be you both work back and forth, but like who is like, is it you that gets to be like, this is how I want to write it, and therefore, you know, these are the environments, or you're like, these are the environments I want to make.
Which one of us kicks down the other's door and goes, this is what I want?
Yeah, exactly.
No, it didn't really work that way. Yeah.
No, I don't know.
Yeah, sometimes I'll come in and be like, Jeremy, what is this guy's backstory? And just sob. And he'll be like, all right, calm down, let's talk this through. And sometimes Jeremy will come in and be like, this is like, what are you doing? This is silly. And we're like, all right, yeah, this probably stand to be more serious and, you know, work this stuff out.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of back and forth. There's no hard and fast rule like Gearbox. It's like, if you make it and it's cool, then you win. That's really what it comes down to. So it's like, sometimes I have an idea and Anthony's like, I'm going to write this other thing that's good instead. And sometimes I'm like, you wrote this thing, could you change it, please? And you're like, okay, sure, let's do that. And we change it. So, you know, it's really a peer relationship that, you know, no one's really driving in that, you know, making all those decisions.
All right, we are going to wrap up here, and we're going to actually go into some gameplay footage from Borderlands 2 of the characters that we did not show last time at PAX. You guys are going to get to see some new stuff in just a moment. I just want to finish up with asking you, of all the abilities, because that's my favorite part of Borderlands, I love the different abilities and trying different things. What are your favorites, personal favorites?
I mean, my personal favorite is Zero. I love him. I love Deception and what he can do. I mean, the fact that he's invisible and can hit for these huge damage numbers, like, there's really nothing like sniping a guy and just watching his head explode and then, like, 87 bazillion comes out of his head and you're like, okay, I'm a total badass. You know, like, that. I love Zero. He's my favorite.
I love Maya's phase lock because it's so versatile. You can use it to create a buttload of elemental damage, or you can use it to heal your friends, or, you know, when you have somebody phase lock, everybody gets a fire rate increase. So suddenly you're not shooting the guy you have phase locked. It's such a strategic element of combat that I just love.
All right, sounds good. So we're going to go straight on over to the gameplay footage and enjoy it.
What's wrong with that statue? I'm holding the vault key and a baby. You know what babies are, right? Those little soft pink things your kind eats after you're done rolling around in your own feces? Ring a bell?
Spotted some help.
Operation complete. Oh, for the love of... All right, great, success. You're pissing me off. Good for you. Here's your prize.
Help here.
Sentry gun prime!
Preparing to strike. piss me off? Was that your goal? Well, mission accomplished, Jagoff. You know when I'm curb stomping your dumb little ass to death? You can take solace in the fact that one time, for like 8 seconds, you mildly irritated me. Good for you. Your parents must be so proud. Knock that last one down. I've already got a great idea for a new statue. It's just gonna be me kicking you in the junk. I'm gonna commission like 15 of those bitches and just put them everywhere.
Now that you're done with that bot, it's time for some fun. You ever seen a constructor bot dance, minion? Cause you're about to. Hit that other button to activate his dancing subroutines. 3, 2, 1, dance time!
Massive dance rules. Error. Error.
Oh! He, just exploded, didn't he? I guess that's kinda like dancing.
You are such a jackass.
Success! Opportunity will be temporarily free of jack statues. Forever!
Turret, what would I do without? Autoguns doing them up!
The constructor has been damaged!
Nearly paid off the house! Spotted some help.
Operation complete.
Oh, for the love of... All right, great, success. You're pissing me off. Good for you. Here's your prize.
Protect the bot, minion!
Flaws and laser cutter.
What is this even accomplishing? Are you trying to piss me off? Was that your goal? Well, mission accomplished, Jagoff. You know when I'm curb stomping your dumb little ass to death? You can take solace in the fact that one time, for like 8 seconds, you mildly irritated me. Good for you. Your parents must be so proud.
The bot is half dead!
Knock that last one down. I've already got a great idea for a new statue. It's just gonna be me kicking you in the junk. I'm gonna commission like 15 of those some bitches and just put them everywhere.
Now that you're done with that bot, it's time for some fun. You ever seen a constructor bot dance, minion? Cause you're about to. Hit that other button to activate his dancing subroutines. 3, 2, 1, dance time!
Dancing dance circles. Error.
Oh, he, just exploded, didn't he? I guess that's kinda like dancing.
You are such a jackass.
Success! Opportunity will be temporarily free of jet statues forever!
Jack gave me.